The wind howled across the ruined plains of Nerath, carrying dust, ash, and the faint smell of metal. Once, this world had been a green colony full of rivers and sunlight. Now it was a wasteland, a planet slowly dying under the control of the Jar Dominion, the alien overlords who had drained its oceans and burned its cities for resources. Among the broken stone ruins of what had once been the capital city, a woman named Lyra searched for food. Her clothes were torn and faded. Her hands were cracked and rough from digging through trash and metal heaps. Beside her walked a small girl, Mira, her daughter, her face thin and her eyes too large for her young age. "Mom, I'm hungry," the girl whispered. Lyra forced a smile, though her heart felt like it was breaking. "I know, sweetheart. Just a little longer. We'll find something." There was nothing left in the abandoned houses except dust. The Jar soldiers had taken all that was useful months ago. They had left behind only ruins and silence. As they moved through the empty streets, Lyra heard a faint hum in the distance. It wasn't thunder. It was deeper, steadier. She froze. It was the sound of engines. Not Jar engines, no, those screamed and whined like dying beasts. This was smoother, steadier, human. Her heart began to pound. She had heard rumors in the refugee camps, stories whispered in the dark about a human rescue ship that sometimes landed on dying colonies. The stories were wild, unbelievable. People said the humans brought food, medicine, and shelter. Others said it was a trick and that no one could be that kind. But what if it was true? "Mira," she said softly, gripping her daughter's hand, "we're going to see who that is." They followed the sound through the dust and rubble until the sky opened into a wide, flat plain of cracked earth. There, resting on the ground like a silver bird, was a starship, small compared to the Jar's massive warcraft, but bright, shining, and clean. The letters UES Vanguard were written in blue along the hull. A ramp extended from its side. Figures in sleek suits moved around it, carrying boxes and machines. The air shimmered with the glow of portable shields protecting them from the toxic wind. Lyra froze. She wanted to run forward to beg for help, but she was afraid. What if they refused her? What if they wanted something she could not give? She looked down at Mira. The child's lips were dry, her steps weak. No, she thought, I cannot let her die here. Gathering her courage, she stepped out from behind the rocks and raised her hands. "Please," she shouted over the wind. "Please help us." The humans turned instantly, but none of them raised weapons. One of them, taller than the rest, stepped forward. He removed his helmet, revealing a man with sharp blue eyes and short dark hair streaked with gray. His face was lined with the kind of weariness only seen in those who had seen too many worlds fall. He spoke gently. "You're safe. I'm Captain Elias Dre of the Sol Vanguard. You're from the colony." Lyra nodded quickly. "Yes, Captain. We have nothing left. My daughter. She hasn't eaten in days. I don't have anything to offer you, but please, if you have even a little food." Her voice cracked. The words felt heavy in her throat. She had prepared herself to bargain, to trade whatever she could, anything for her child's life. But the captain only looked at her, then at Mira, who stood silently clutching her mother's arm. Elias's voice softened. "You don't need to offer anything. No one should have to beg to live." He turned and called to his crew. "Medical team. 2 civilians here. Get them food and water immediately." Lyra blinked. You'll help us? Without a trade?" He smiled faintly. "We don't trade lives. We save them." Within minutes, humans surrounded Lyra and Mira. One of them, a woman with brown hair tied back and a kind face, wrapped a warm blanket around Mira's shoulders. Another handed Lyra a pouch of nutrient water. When she opened it, the taste made her dizzy. It had been so long since she had felt anything cold or sweet. The crew led them into the ship. Inside, everything was bright and alive. The air was clean and soft light glowed along the corridors. She could hear the hum of machinery, the steady rhythm of a heart that never stopped beating. Mira's eyes went wide as she saw a table covered in packets of food. She reached for one shyly. The brown-haired medic smiled. "Go ahead, sweetheart. It's all right." Lyra's eyes filled with tears as her daughter ate. She wanted to thank them, to say something, anything, but no words came. Captain Elias approached quietly. "How long have you been out there?" he asked. "Months," Lyra said. The jar took everything. The cities, the food. They forced us to dig in the mines until we couldn't stand. When the guards left, we had nowhere to go. Elias's jaw tightened. We've seen it before. The Dominion moves from world to world, stripping each one bare. He looked out through the window at the gray horizon. Earth once faced something similar long ago. We promised we'd never let it happen again, to anyone. Lyra frowned, confused. You help strangers? Even those who aren't human? He nodded. Because we were strangers once too. And someone helped us. As the ship's engines powered up, Lyra and Mira were taken to a small room with soft bunks. It was more comfort than they had known in years. The floor vibrated slightly as the Vanguard lifted off. Through the window, Lyra watched the dead world of Nerath shrink beneath them, a pale ball of ash disappearing into darkness. Mira was already asleep, clutching the blanket tightly. Lyra sat beside her, unable to stop the tears running down her cheeks. For the first time in so long, they were safe. A quiet knock sounded on the door. Elias stood there holding a data pad. We're heading to orbit to deliver supplies to other survivors, he said. But you and your daughter will stay with us. We'll take you to one of our colonies, New Gaia. You'll have food, medicine, shelter, a real home. Lyra shook her head slowly. Captain, I don't understand. Why are you doing this? You don't even know us, he smiled faintly. Because that's what humans do. When someone's lost, we reach out a hand. The stars are big enough for all of us. He handed her the data pad. When you're ready, we'll help you start over. When he left, Lyra looked out at the stars beyond the glass. For years she had believed kindness was extinct, that the universe was cold and cruel. But here, among these strange, strong humans, she saw something different. Hope. Hours later, as the Vanguard cruised silently through orbit, Elias stood in the command deck. His second officer, Lieutenant Vega, approached. Captain, the jar might detect us. Should we move to stealth mode? Elias stared at the planet below. Not yet. We stay until the last group is safe. Vega hesitated. Sir, we can't save everyone. No, Elias said quietly. But we can save someone. And that's how it starts. Far below, the fires of Nerath flickered weakly against the darkness. But aboard the human ship, light filled every corner, a symbol of defiance, of compassion that refused to die. Lyra woke to find Mira sitting by the window, watching the stars. The little girl turned to her with a smile that seemed brighter than any sun. Mom, look. The stars are moving. Lyra joined her. That's the ship, sweetheart. We're flying. Where are we going? Lyra brushed a strand of hair from her daughter's face. Somewhere safe. Somewhere humans live? Mira thought for a moment, then said, They're nice. The man gave me food. Yes, Lyra whispered. He did. For the first time in years, her voice didn't tremble with fear. She looked out at the endless space beyond the window, a sea of silver lights scattered across the dark, and allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, tomorrow could be better. When Lyra awoke, the sound that reached her ears was soft and strange. The low hum of engines, the gentle rhythm of air filters, and the calm beeping of machines. For a moment she forgot where she was. Then she opened her eyes and saw smooth metal walls and soft white light. She wasn't in the ruins anymore. She was aboard the human ship, the Sol Vanguard. Her daughter Mira was still asleep beside her, wrapped in the warm blanket the humans had given her. The color had returned to the little girl's face. She looked peaceful, safe. Lyra could hardly remember the last time she had seen her child sleep without trembling from cold or fear. A small tone sounded near the door, and then it slid open with a quiet hiss. Lieutenant Vega, the woman with brown hair and kind eyes, stepped in carrying a tray. Good morning, Vega said with a smile. How are you feeling? Lyra sat up quickly. I'm fine. I didn't mean to oversleep. Should we leave the room? Vega shook her head gently. You can rest as long as you need. The captain said you're guests here, not prisoners. She placed the tray on a table. There were sealed packs of food, 2 cups of warm liquid, and fruit, real fruit. Lyra stared at it as if it were treasure. Is this for us? Yes, Vega said. Eat slowly, though. Your body needs time to adjust after so long without proper food. Mira stirred at the smell. Mom, what's that? Lyra smiled softly. Breakfast, sweetheart. Mira's small hands reached for the fruit eagerly, and Vega laughed. She's got a strong spirit, she said warmly. She'll fit right in here. Lyra hesitated before speaking. You're helping so many of us. Why, what do you gain? Vega's smile faded slightly, replaced with something thoughtful. We gain hope, she said. Every person we save makes the galaxy a little less empty. She looked toward the window where the stars drifted slowly past. Humans came late to space. When we arrived, we saw what the Jar had done to worlds like yours. The captain decided we wouldn't look away. Later that day, Lyra and Mira were guided through the ship by a young technician named Ryan, who loved to talk. This section's for the medical team, he explained. Over there's the greenhouse. We grow most of our food right here on the ship. Mira's eyes widened. You grow food? In space? Ryan chuckled. Sure do. Humans like to make things grow even where they shouldn't. That's how we survive. He led them through a wide glass corridor filled with plants. The air smelled fresh and earthy. Artificial lights glowed overhead like tiny suns. Lyra touched one of the green leaves gently. It felt alive, soft against her fingers. It's beautiful, she whispered. Ryan smiled proudly. We use recycled water, balanced light, and nutrient mist. Every plant helps clean the air too. This garden keeps us alive, right? And it keeps us sane. As they walked, they passed humans and aliens alike. Lyra noticed how naturally the humans moved among the refugees. A tall reptilian worker carrying tools beside a human engineer. A pair of children laughing together. One blue-skinned, one pale. No one seemed afraid or different. In the mines of Nerath, Lyra had seen races divided by fear and cruelty. Here she saw cooperation, laughter, and small acts of kindness. A human handing water to a creature twice his size. A medic comforting a frightened alien child. She realized something. The humans didn't just bring food. They brought hope, the kind of hope that was contagious. That evening, Captain Elias Dre called a meeting for the refugees in the ship's central hall. The room was wide and bright, filled with benches and holographic displays showing distant stars. When everyone had gathered, Elias stepped up to the front. His uniform was simple, his voice calm and clear. I know many of you are frightened, he began. You've lost your homes, your families, your worlds. But I want you to understand something. You are not alone anymore. He tapped a control on his wrist and the hologram behind him changed. It showed dozens of human ships spreading through different star systems. The Sol Vanguard is one of many. We are part of a new human mission, Project Horizon. Our goal is simple: to rebuild, to restore, and to protect life wherever it still exists. A murmur spread through the crowd. Some were amazed. Others didn't believe him. Elias continued, We don't come to rule. We come to help. We were once broken too. We nearly destroyed ourselves centuries ago. But we learned. We learned that survival means standing together, not apart. Lyra watched as Mira sat on her lap, listening with wide eyes. She felt something stir inside her. Something she thought had died long ago. Faith. After the speech, people clapped softly. Some cried. A few still looked doubtful, but most seemed lighter, as if the darkness had lifted a little. Days turned into weeks aboard the Vanguard. Lyra and Mira began to adjust to life among the humans. Mira joined a small group of children, human and alien, who studied basic reading and drawing under the care of Dr. Amira, a teacher who believed education was the first step to healing. Mira's laughter filled the halls. She would run to Lyra every evening, showing her drawings of the stars and strange creatures she imagined. Look, Mom, this one's Earth, she said proudly, showing a picture of a blue planet with green patches. Lyra smiled and hugged her. It's beautiful. Meanwhile, Lyra helped in the kitchen and greenhouse. She learned how to care for the plants and distribute rations. The humans treated her as part of the crew, not as a burden. She worked hard, wanting to earn the kindness she had been given. Sometimes she would see Captain Elias walking through the ship, always calm, always watching over his people. He didn't act like a commander giving orders. He acted like someone protecting a family. Once, Lyra approached him while he was checking a console. Captain, she said softly, thank you. You saved us. He looked up. You don't owe me thanks, Lyra. You owe it to yourself to live. She hesitated. Do you ever regret helping others? It must be dangerous, Elias smiled faintly. Maybe. But if we stop helping, then we're no better than those who destroyed your world. His words stayed with her long after he left. One quiet night, alarms suddenly echoed through the ship. Red lights flashed across the corridor. The intercom buzzed. All crew to stations. Refugees remain in quarters. Lyra's heart raced. She gathered Mira in her arms and held her close. The walls vibrated as the ship changed course sharply. Moments later, Vega entered their room. "It's all right," she said quickly. "We've detected a Tsar patrol ship nearby. We're moving to stealth mode." Lyra's throat went dry. "Will they find us?" Vega shook her head. "Not if we stay quiet. The Vanguard has stealth plating, the best in human space. Just stay here." After she left, the room fell silent again except for the hum of the engines. Mira looked up at her mother. "Are the bad ones coming?" Lyra forced a smile. "No, my love. The humans won't let them." It was strange, she realized. For the first time, she actually believed it. Hours later, the lights returned to normal. The danger had passed. Elias himself visited the refugee hall to reassure everyone. "They didn't detect us," he said. "We're safe, but we'll need to move soon. The Tsar are starting to search this sector," the refugees murmured in fear. Elias raised his hand. "Listen, we're taking everyone to New Gaia, one of our colonies. It's a place where life grows again. Once there, you'll have food, shelter, and a community." A young alien stood up. "Why would you risk your people for us?" Elias looked around the room slowly. "Because if we don't, then humanity means nothing." The hall went quiet. Every word felt heavy with truth. After the meeting, Lyra walked along the observation deck. Through the wide glass window, she saw the stars moving past like rivers of light. The ship glided silently among them, a fragile spark of warmth in the endless cold. Vega joined her, carrying 2 cups of warm tea. "Beautiful, isn't it?" she said. Lyra nodded. "It's peaceful. I never thought I'd see peace again." Vega looked at her gently. "You will. New Gaia isn't perfect, but it's a beginning. You'll have your own home there." Lyra stared out at the stars. "When I first came here, I thought I had to trade something for kindness. But you people, you just give it," Vega smiled. "That's what makes us human." They stood in silence, watching the stars. Somewhere deep in space, danger still waited. But aboard the Sol Vanguard, there was light. A light built by hands that refused to stop helping others. And in that light, Lyra found something she had thought was lost forever. Hope. Days passed in quiet peace aboard the Sol Vanguard. Lyra began to believe that perhaps the danger had ended. The ship had crossed several empty star systems, leaving the ruined world of Nerath far behind. Mira spent her days learning and laughing with the other children. Lyra helped the crew in the greenhouse, trimming leaves and checking water levels. The humans often said that life aboard the ship was a constant balance between work and hope, and for the first time, Lyra understood that truth. Every morning, Captain Elias Dre walked through the corridors, greeting crew and refugees alike. He had the calm air of someone who carried great burdens but never showed the weight. To Lyra, he seemed like the kind of man who could hold a broken world together simply by believing it was worth saving. One evening, as the ship floated near, a quiet star, Lyra stood in the observation deck with Mira. The stars stretched like silver rivers across the black sky. Mira pointed excitedly. "Mom, look. That one looks like a bird." Lyra smiled. "Yes, it does." But her smile faded when the lights around them flickered. The hum of the engines dipped for a second, just long enough to fill the air with unease. Moments later, the intercom crackled. "Attention all crew. Unidentified ships approaching. All non-essential personnel return to quarters." Lyra's heart began to pound. She turned to see Mira's frightened face. "It's all right," she whispered, though she didn't believe it. "The humans will protect us." The corridors filled with movement as the crew rushed to their stations. Lyra and the other refugees were guided back to the safe section of the ship. Through the open door of the command center, she caught a glimpse of Elias standing before the main display. Red lights flashed around a hologram showing several approaching signals. "Captain," Vega said quickly. 3 Tsar ships, small class. They've locked onto our trail." Elias's jaw tightened. "We can't outrun them with the refugee shuttles attached. If we disconnect, they'll destroy them first." Ryan, the young technician, spoke up. We can use the solar field of the nearby star to hide our energy trail. Elias nodded. Do it. But get every refugee to the pods just in case. In the refugee bay, Lyra held Mira tightly as the ship shook. The sound of distant explosions echoed faintly through the walls. Vega appeared again, her uniform slightly burned from sparks. The captain says we'll be all right, Vega said quickly. But we need to prepare. If the shields drop, I'll get you both to the escape pods myself. Lyra's voice trembled. You could run. Why do you stay? Vega looked at her for a long moment. Because running doesn't save anyone. The captain taught us that. Then she was gone again, racing toward the control deck. Inside the bridge, the battle had begun. The Vanguard's shields flared blue as plasma fire rained against them. Elias stood firm, hands behind his back, watching the tactical display. Return fire, low yield, he ordered. We're not here to destroy, only to protect. The Jar, ships fired relentlessly, their crimson energy bolts lighting up the dark void. Each hit made the deck tremble. Shields at 60%, Ryan shouted. Elias's eyes narrowed. Ready the solar resonance cannon. Vega looked shocked. Sir, that weapon's not fully tested. Neither is humanity. Elias replied calmly. Let's find out which works first. In the refugee section, Lyra could feel every vibration. She pressed her forehead against the cold wall and whispered a silent prayer for the humans fighting above. Mira clung to her arm, tears in her eyes. Mom, are they going to die? Lyra shook her head quickly. No, my love, humans are brave, they always find a way. She didn't know where that confidence came from, but saying it made her believe it. Suddenly the noise stopped. For a moment, there was only silence, a stillness so deep it made everyone hold their breath. Then the intercom crackled again. Elias's voice came through, steady and strong. All hands, prepare for solar discharge. Shield your eyes. Lyra turned toward the small window in their room. Outside, the star they had been orbiting seemed to flare brighter, then impossibly bright. A beam of golden light erupted from the Vanguard's side, cutting through space like a sunrise. It struck the nearest Jar ship and exploded in a silent wave of fire. The other two turned sharply, engines flaring as they fled into the void. Cheers erupted through the corridors. Minutes later, the engine stabilized and Vega returned to the refugee bay, her face shining with relief. It's over, she said. We did it. The refugees cried, hugged, and prayed. Some knelt in silence, unable to believe they were alive. Lyra held Mira close, tears rolling down her face. When Elias arrived, the refugees stood to meet him. His uniform was scorched at the edges, and a line of ash marked his cheek, but he was smiling. You're all safe, he said simply. That's what matters. An alien elder stepped forward. You risked your lives for us. The Jar would have left us to die. Elias shook his head. Then they've forgotten what life means. Later, Lyra found him alone in the observation deck. The stars outside were calm again, their quiet beauty returning to fill the darkness. You saved us, she said softly. He turned, his expression thoughtful. We all saved each other. If it weren't for the engineers, the medics, and the courage of people like you, none of this would work. Lyra frowned. Me? I did nothing. Elias smiled. You didn't give up. That's more than most would have done. Hope is contagious, Lyra. You passed it to your daughter, and to us. He looked out at the stars. The Jar will send more ships. They'll keep trying to stop us from rebuilding. But we'll keep going. Every world we save is one less world lost to fear. Lyra studied his face and saw exhaustion there, but also determination. The same kind that had made humans survive everything thrown at them. She understood then why people whispered stories about them. They weren't powerful because of their weapons. They were powerful because they refused to stop caring. Days later, repairs continued across the ship. The solar cannon had drained much of their energy, and the engineers worked around the clock to restore power. Lyra volunteered to help distribute food and clean the damaged sections. Everywhere she went, she saw unity, humans and aliens side by side, rebuilding what was broken. Mira helped in small ways too, carrying tools and bringing water to tired workers. The humans treated her like a little sister, teaching her words from Earth's old languages and songs from their home. One night, as they all ate together in the mess hall, Ryan began telling stories of old human history, tales of ancient Earth heroes who had fought not for conquest but for justice. "That's what we do now," he said proudly. "We fight so others can live free." Mira listened with bright eyes. "When I grow up," she said, "I want to be like Captain Elias." Laughter spread through the room, and someone said, "You already are, brave and kind." Lyra smiled. The child who had once cried in hunger now dreamed of stars. Later that night, Lyra walked to the viewing deck again. The ship glided silently through the black sea of space. She thought of all that had happened, of fear, kindness, and courage. Elias joined her quietly. "You're awake late," he said. "I couldn't sleep," she replied. "Every time I close my eyes, I see that light from the cannon. It was beautiful and terrifying." Elias nodded. "Power always is, but it only means something when it's used to protect, not destroy." He leaned against the railing. "When we first came to the stars, people called us reckless, said humanity would only bring chaos. Maybe they were right for a while, but we learned. We learned that mercy can be stronger than fear." Lyra looked up at him. "And what if mercy has a price? Then it's worth paying," he said simply. "Because the moment we stop showing mercy, we stop being human." Silence filled the deck. The stars outside shimmered gently, their light reflecting off the captain's tired eyes. Lyra realized something in that moment, something powerful. The jar had power, yes, but humans had something deeper, a belief that no life was too small to save. That belief was their greatest weapon. The next day, the Vanguard received a transmission from another human fleet. Reinforcements were on their way, bringing supplies and help for the refugees. The crew cheered and the children ran through the halls singing. Elias stood in the command room, looking at the screen. New Gaia, their destination, was only a few jumps away. The coordinates glowed softly, a promise of safety and new beginnings. He turned to Vega. "Prepare the jump, let's take them home." As the ship entered hyperspace, the stars stretched into streams of light. Lyra held Mira's hand and closed her eyes. For the first time in years, she wasn't afraid of tomorrow. The humans had given her food and shelter, yes, but they had also given her something far greater, a reason to believe again. And in the heart of that massive ship, surrounded by people from countless worlds, she finally understood the truth. Humanity's greatest strength wasn't their machines or weapons. It was their heart. The Sol Vanguard glided silently through hyperspace, its engines humming like a steady heartbeat. Outside the viewports, stars stretched into streaks of light, painting a dazzling river across the endless black. For the refugees aboard, each passing moment brought them closer to safety, to New Gaia, a human colony untouched by war or famine. For Lyra, the journey was more than just a trip to a new world. It was the first time in years that she felt hope. She held Mira close as the child leaned against her, eyes wide with curiosity. "Mom, will people like us live there?" "Yes, my love," Lyra whispered. "There's room for everyone. Humans, aliens, anyone who wants to be safe." Mira smiled. "Then maybe we can have a garden too, like the one on the ship." Lyra laughed softly. "Yes, a big one." The Vanguard entered orbit around New Gaia as dawn broke over the planet. Unlike Nerath, New Gaia was alive. Oceans shimmered like polished silver. Forests spread like emerald carpets, and cities gleamed with light that reflected the sun. Ships and smaller craft dotted the skies, moving with purpose but without chaos. For the refugees, the sight was breathtaking. Many had never seen a thriving world. Their mouths hung open, their eyes wide. Lyra felt her chest tighten with emotion. They had survived the impossible, and now stood on the edge of a second chance. Captain Elias Dre addressed the passengers over the intercom. "Welcome to New Gaia. This is your new home, a place to rebuild, to dream, and to live without fear. He paused. I promise you, the hardships you endured will not be forgotten, and here, they will not be repeated. The refugees were guided to temporary housing while the humans began the work of integrating them into the colony. Lyra and Mira were assigned to a small settlement on the outskirts of a valley, where green fields stretched toward distant mountains. The air smelled of flowers and fresh soil, scents Lyra had thought were lost forever. Every morning, humans and aliens worked side by side, planting crops, constructing homes, and repairing machinery. Lyra found herself teaching Mira alongside other children, sharing what little knowledge she remembered from Nerath. Though simple, the act of learning felt miraculous in a world where survival had been a daily struggle. Mira laughed as she learned to draw solar panels and small engines with the guidance of a human teacher named Amira. I want to build one for our house, she exclaimed. Lyra held her hand, feeling tears rise. You can, sweetie. You can build anything here. One day, Lyra joined Captain Elias and the engineers to inspect the settlement's main water supply. They walked along the banks of a clear river, where small bridges arched gracefully over sparkling water. Children played nearby, their laughter echoing across the valley. Look at them, Elias said softly, watching the children. This is what we fight for. Every world we save, every life we protect. It comes back to this. Lyra nodded. I never imagined a place like this could exist. After Nerath, I thought the universe only had despair. Elias turned to her, his blue eyes steady. Despair exists everywhere, but humanity, our hope, our compassion, can grow anywhere too. That's why we do what we do. She realized then that it was not the humans' technology that made them strong. It was their choice, to protect, to nurture, to act, even when danger lurked nearby. The following weeks were filled with the quiet rhythm of building a new life. Refugees learned trades, planted crops, and even helped design homes for other newcomers. Lyra and Mira worked alongside humans and aliens alike, learning how to make the most of the fertile soil and clean water. One evening, as the sun dipped, behind the mountains, Lyra watched Mira play with a group of children near the riverbank. Their laughter filled the valley, echoing across fields of tall grass. For the first time in years, Lyra felt peace. She turned to Captain Elias, who had joined her quietly. You've done so much for all of us, she said. Why? You barely know us. Elias smiled faintly. Because one day someone did the same for me. Strangers who believed in helping without asking for anything in return. And now, I do the same. That's the cycle of humanity. Lyra looked at the horizon. I hope I can do that too one day. You will, he said simply. Every act of kindness spreads further than you think. As the colony grew, humans taught the refugees not only to survive but to thrive. Schools were established, farms expanded, and medical stations ensured no one went hungry or sick. The Jar Dominion was far away, and the humans patrolled the outer systems to prevent any attacks. One afternoon, Lyra stood in the community garden, helping Mira plant rows of vegetables. Mira paused to look at her mother. Mom, when I grow up, I want to help people too. Just like the humans did for us. Lyra smiled, brushing soil from her daughter's hair. Then you will, sweetie. You'll show them what hope looks like. A nearby child, a young alien with scales that glimmered in the sun, laughed. And maybe one day, we'll help someone else too. Lyra's heart swelled. This was the proof of humanity's greatest power. It wasn't just the humans themselves, but the way their actions inspired others. The spark of hope had ignited in countless hearts. Captain Elias visited the settlement often, checking on the progress and ensuring the community felt supported. One evening, he gathered the refugees at the central plaza, where a small fountain reflected the last rays of the sun. Look around you, he said. This is what courage and compassion can create. You survived the impossible, and now you have the chance to rebuild, to grow, and to create something better than what you lost. He paused, letting his words sink in. Remember, the galaxy is wide and many worlds are still in need. The lessons you learn here, of kindness, courage, and hope, are yours to share. That is how humanity spreads. Lyra watched Mira nod eagerly, her small hands gripping the other children's tightly. The child had grown stronger, braver, and happier since the vanguard had saved them. Months passed. Lyra and Mira settled into their new lives completely. They had a small home of their own near the river, where crops flourished under the warm sun. Mira attended school and learned quickly, always eager to help others. Lyra taught newcomers how to grow food and care for the land, her knowledge from Nerath now a valuable tool in building a thriving colony. One night, Lyra stood on the porch of their home, looking at the stars. Mira joined her, leaning her head on her mother's shoulder. "Mom," she whispered, "I want to help more people. I want to make sure no one has to go hungry again." "You will, sweetie," Lyra said, holding her close. "And when you do, you'll pass on the hope that humans gave us." A soft light illuminated the valley. The settlers' homes glimmered, the garden shone, and the children's laughter echoed through the night. For the first time in Lyra's life, she felt the future was not something to fear, but something to embrace. Captain Elias visited one last time before returning to the vanguard for other missions. Lyra and Mira approached him to say goodbye. "You don't owe me anything," Elias said gently. "Just promise that when you see someone in need, you'll remember what we did here." Lyra nodded, tears in her eyes. "We will. We promise." Elias smiled. "Then my work here is done. Keep growing, keep helping, and never forget. The greatest strength of humanity is its heart." He turned and walked away, his figure fading into the glow of the settlement lights. That night, Lyra tucked Mira into bed. The girl was already asleep, clutching a small stuffed animal she had been given by the human crew. Lyra looked around their modest home. The walls were simple, but warm. The windows framed the stars above. Outside, she could hear the quiet hum of life, humans and aliens living together, building a future, protecting one another. Lyra whispered a silent thank you to the humans who had saved them. Not just for the food, not just for the safety, but for believing that life was worth saving. She realized now that the galaxy was vast and full of dangers, but it was also full of people like Elias Vega and the crew of the Vanguard, people willing to take risks, to extend kindness, and to fight for hope. Her heart lifted. Humanity had shown her the truth that courage, compassion, and hope were stronger than fear, hunger, or despair, and that knowledge would guide her and her daughter forever. The stars outside glimmered as Lyra finally closed her eyes. Tomorrow would bring more work, more challenges, and more chances to help others. But tonight, she allowed herself to rest, in the comfort of safety, surrounded by life and laughter. The universe was vast, yes, but it was no longer cold and cruel. It was alive, full of hope, and human hearts had made all the difference. And for the first time, Lyra knew without doubt, where humans walk, hope follows.